Hey guys, it's Night Cruiser MA, and I am here now finally to answer some of the great questions that you guys posed to me about the Indian Chieftain. And I thought I would just go through these questions. I have not looked through them. I mean, I've looked through them, but I haven't gone through them now and read them and thought about my answers. So my answers are going to be very much off the cuff. I apologize if they ramble or are incomplete because I really haven't done the homework that I should for this. So, but hopefully I'll get you some good answers. So let's get started. Tracy Loop asked, how does your Indian compare to the Victory that you had a chance to use? Also, wish your wife a happy birthday from all of us out here as well. Well, Tracy, I appreciate the birthday wishes, and I'm sure my wife Jo does as well. As for your question about how the Chieftain compares to the Victory, I had rented a Victory cross-country tour for about 2 weeks, and I'd also rented a cross-country last year or two for a few days here and there, and I've ridden them quite a bit. So I do know a lot about the cross-country as well as the Victory Judge that I had for about 10 months. But as it pertains to the cross-country, which is a little bit more, if you're going to compare two bikes, the cross-country and the Chieftain are the way to go. This bike, I would say, if you're under about 5'10", this is really the way to go, because you're going to have so much more leg room on the Victory Cross Country. You've probably got at least 5 inches more, maybe 4 inches more leg room on the cross country. It's for stretching out, it's very nice. The sound is better on the Chieftain. The power plant is better as far as just torque. The smoothness is better. It just, I think it's because of the torque. It never really struggles. It just always goes, it doesn't matter what you want it to do, it's always ready to go. The Victory needs to be up more in that 3,000 RPM range to get going, whereas this is just beginning to, 3,000 to 3,400 is about as high as you're really going to get any peak torque out of, and then, so you really want to keep it down low for that. That's part of what I enjoy about the bike, is just that difference in the engine, is this never really works hard to do much of anything. Comfort-wise, I think that the cross-country Tour has a better seat than the Chieftain. I think the standard cross-country has a worse seat for the Chieftain. Completely subjective. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. The only way you can know that is just to go out and sit on one. So those are my thoughts. And also, I don't know if I mentioned it, I did. The sound. This just sounds better stock or with the Stage 1 pipes. I think this sounds better. Michael Aldos, I'm sure I butchered that, I apologize. How is the quality of the fairing plastic? I've seen a few pictures with a small pocket storage area on the right side, but is it really usable? I've rode a Chieftain and really liked it, but I have concerns of the quality overall on the bike's components, being it is a new product. Well, Michael, a couple of things about that. First of all, I think you're right to be concerned. The pocket that you're talking about is strictly, it's not really a storage pocket per se. It's really a place that you put your iPod. It has a little cloth, not cloth, but like a nylon sleeve in there, and it has a USB connector, and that's where you put your iPod. You're not going to put loose change or anything like that in there. It's strictly to stuff an iPod in and close the door. So storage-wise, you don't really have any storage in the fairing. On the Roadmaster, you do have storage in the lowers that come, and that's kind of nice. And you do on the Victory Cross Country as well, on the Cross Country Tour that has lowers. You've got storage up there. But on the Chieftain, there is no fairing storage. The quality of the plastics, interesting that you should ask that. On the whole, I think they're reasonable. I think they're in line with other bikes that I've ridden. But the windshield does rattle. It's a constant rattle. I've heard that happens with Victory Visions as well, just simply because this has 4 inches of travel up and down, and because of the bearings, and so it just rattles in there. But overall, I have no complaints about the quality on this bike. I have one complaint, aside from the windshield. The speakers. You do get if you get an overly bassy song, you will get some rattle from the speakers. I mean, that's the way it is. You got a fairing, there's not a lot of room for the speakers, so they're they might vibrate at certain frequencies. Other than that, honestly, quality-wise, this bike has been fantastic. It feels solid. It feels it is very well put together. And I've heard people say that Harley might have this beat for fit and finish. I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess I haven't looked at enough Harleys to know that. I think they're both great bikes, but I really love the quality of this bike. Best of El Boon Tunes asks, how is the low-speed maneuverability of the Chieftain? I really like the low-speed maneuverability of this bike. The steering rake, obviously any bike that's 900 pounds is not going to, or 860, 850, is not going to steer like a sport bike or anything like that. But that being said, I have no problems at all in a parking lot, making sharp corners, making U-turns. A lot of that, though, has to do with clutch control. You get used to the clutch. You know where the clutch engages, so you know how to lean and when to lean and how much throttle to give it. And you'll just go through a parking lot, never put your feet down. And I can maneuver this very, very well at low speeds. It took me a couple of weeks probably to get used to it, to know, to feel really certain with it. But I really have no issues at all with low speed maneuverability. Charlie G asks, you've mentioned that you've driven the Roadmaster quite a bit. How does it compare to the Chieftain? Does it have more room, being that it's intended more for two-up riding? Is it essentially the same bike, save for better wind protection? Well, Charlie, I did ride the Chieftain. Yeah, I've ridden the Chieftain a lot. I did ride the Roadmaster quite a bit during the Indian demo days at the local dealership when our group was helping, leading and sweeping rides. And I loved the Roadmaster, absolutely loved it. So how does it compare with it? The Roadmaster seat is different. It's about a half an inch higher, half an inch more cushioning, and it is shaped quite a bit differently from this. I find it actually more comfortable than the Chieftain seat. The half an inch higher, I think they're advertising that as, hey look, we're catering to taller riders. Okay, so if you're 5'9.5", you're probably okay now. But if you get to 5'10", you're still going to be cramped. Me, because I'm just El Blimpo sized, I flatten that little half inch right out. I mean, I sit on it and it doesn't make any difference to me, and I'm still pretty flat-footed on the Roadmaster. Passengers, I've heard different stories on that. I've heard passengers that prefer the roominess of the Chieftain in the back. Apparently that's what this means, the roominess. And I've heard passengers say that they like the Roadmaster better. So again, all subjective. You'd have to sit on it and see what you think. Is it the same bike? Well, it is. Basically, it was designed before the Chieftain, and they took things off to create the Chieftain. So the wind protection is better. It does have massively large lowers, which might take a little while to get used to, but I actually liked them. It's got the trunk. It doesn't feel drastically heavier off the kickstand. In fact, Sally sat on one today at the dealership. What did you think? Did you think it was drastically heavier than this bike getting it off the kickstand? No, a little bit. About the same, maybe a little bit heavier. Even though it does have the trunk and the lowers, it's still such a nicely balanced bike that you just don't really notice it that much. The handlebars come back further at a nice angle. I like that about it. So, but the ride quality is about the same. I felt that it was about the same, and I really liked it. I love the Roadmaster. I think the seat is better than the Chieftain, and I don't know if I'd like the wind protection in the summer, but in the cooler days that we were doing the demo rides, it was nice. Spool77 says, how secure is the backrest / luggage rack? I went to an Indian demo day last weekend. Rode the Chieftain, the Scout, and the Roadmaster. Loved all three. Anyways, a couple of bikes had the quick detach backrest. It had a bit of play in it when it was mounted, like you can move it up and down a bit. Not enough that I would fear it coming off or anything, but just consider it to be, or just enough to be annoying, especially considering what they cost. I figured there was something wrong with the one I saw. Just wondered how yours is. Well, actually, this has been extremely secure. I have no play in that whatsoever. The backrest is very, very well locked down. It mounts onto spools here, and then it kind of locks down. And the luggage rack, even though it only mounts with 2 screws and it does not mount to the spools here, is very secure. I would put 25-30 pounds on that and I wouldn't worry about it. So I'm very impressed with the sturdiness of that. Maybe the bike that you rode had an issue somewhere, but mine has always been very, very solid. Audie Carter says, what is the actual real fuel consumption on your model? Do the dealers negotiate on price, or is it fixed by the manufacturer? Can you adjust the suspension? What is the longest trip you have taken? Is the stock seat comfy on long trips? Can you do any adjusting on bars? Does it drag pegs in corners? Does it drag pipes in corners? Slow speed maneuvering, and has the transmission gotten any better than when you first bought it? What about comfort for the pillion rider on long trips? Well, Audie, those are great questions, and I'm going to keep my phone out so I can refer to them because I'll never remember all of them. What is the actual real fuel consumption on my model? I'm getting 32 to 34 miles per gallon. I ride perhaps a little bit more aggressively than some, and I do a lot of around town stuff. I'm probably 80% around town and 20% on the highway, if that gives you any indication. Do the dealers negotiate on price, or is it fixed by the manufacturer? Any dealer can negotiate on a price. Because of the demand for Indians right now, you're not going to get much negotiation at all. I got a pretty good price from the dealer. This is the 4th bike that I'd purchased from the dealer. I wouldn't expect on a model or on a line that's selling as well as these bikes to really get a lot off. That applies to cars and motorcycles as well. Can you adjust the suspension? You can. The rear suspension has an air shock that you can adjust. You simply remove the side cover, and then you can inflate it. It comes with a little pump, and it kind of goes in, and you can pump it up or release air to get to the desired ride height level that you want for the weight that you're carrying. What's the longest trip you've taken? For example, is a stock seat comfy on long trips? The longest trip I've taken in a single trip is about 250 miles on this bike. I went out around the Quabbin Reservoir in a group ride. In fact, I might post that at some point. And the stock seat is very comfy for about an hour. But you know what? Almost any seat that I've found is comfy for varying amounts of time, but it always ends up being that you get pressure points and you have to kind of shift and move your weight. And especially me, I have more pressure points than most because I've got a lot of weight sitting on the seat. So I actually think, although I've not taken a long trip on the Roadmaster, but I did ride it, oh my gosh, I don't know, I probably did Sunday and Saturday I might have done 20 demo rides, and out of those I probably did 6 or 7 on the Roadmaster, and I always felt that seat was very comfortable. I think that would be more comfortable for longer trips than the Chieftain. The Chieftain locks you into one position more than say the Roadmaster, where I think you can move around a little bit more. So I was comfortable for the first hour and a half, and then you start to get to the point where you want to be able to shift a little bit. You can do that. You can shift back, front, things like that, shift your weight around, but if you're using a backrest, you're going to be pushed up a little bit, and you are going to be locked into one position only. So take that for what it's worth. Can you do any adjusting on the bars? The only adjustment you could do is you could probably maybe swing them down just a little bit, but you don't have much leeway there. Maybe an inch, something like that, before you're going to start hitting the tank. Maybe 2 inches, I don't know. But yes, you can reach under there and pivot the bars up and down if you wanted to. Does it drag pegs or pipes in the corners? No. Even with me on it, which is preferably how I want my bike taking corners, I have yet to scrape a peg or a pipe, and I'm telling you, I've had this on Thompson Motor Speedway, going around corners at a very good clip at a very good lean angle, and I couldn't scrape a peg. Maybe that says something about my riding and I'm just not aggressive enough, but I was going, 45, 50 and leaned over at a very good angle, and I wasn't scraping anything. I have yet to scrape a peg on this, or a floorboard or a pipe. So I'm very impressed with the magic that Indian has worked there. Slow speed maneuvering, I did cover that before. I feel that it's fine if you have good clutch control. Has the transmission gotten any better than when you first bought it? As far as the coming out of first gear when it's cold, no, it hasn't gotten any better. By cold, I mean not so much engine being cold, but I mean temperature being cold. This bike, if it's below 60, something like that, you're going to have trouble getting that out of first. It'll be stiff. It'll stick a bit. I've solved that by getting a heel shifter, and now, when I first start out, I just kick it down instead of trying to pull it up. So, but it hasn't improved in that regard. Comfort for the passenger rider on long trips, I don't know. I haven't taken a passenger on a long trip. Short trips, my friend Sally has gotten on it, and she seems to think it's pretty comfortable. I mean, by short trips, I mean less than an hour, something like that. I've tried in vain to get my wife to ride with me, and she has no interest in motorcycles and just won't do it. So I only have one person's opinion at this point.